Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Welcome in to another edition of the JMU Sports News Podcast. This is Bennett Conlon. I'm joined by Jack Fitzpatrick. Not an emergency, this podcast. We're just having sort of a casual, normal Thursday night.
Yeah, normal Thursday night. This is our first normal podcast in quite some time. We went from Signetti leaving to Bob Chesney being hired, and now the Bob Chesney era, we can say, has officially begun after a press conference on Tuesday that was absolutely electric.
Right?
I'm ready to run through a brick wall. Did you find one that you could run through between when that finished and now?
No, fortunately I did not, so my body's still intact, but I'll find one eventually and I'll run right through it.
Yeah, you better, because, man, did he have some quotes. We'll get into it a little bit later on News or Snooze, breaking down 3 of his press conference quotes. But first, we want to let you guys know that 3-Notched Valley Collab House in Harrisonburg is the place you need to go if you want to get libations.
That's exactly right. We love.
And you're waiting for the ticker to scroll by so that you can read the rest.
The last few times you've just done them all. I've just been hanging out.
I'll let you go back.
It's back to me. They've got Minuteman Mondays, as we all know. $3 Minuteman fours. Tuesdays, half off the cases. I feel like I know them at this point. And Friday, First Tap Friday, where they release a new brew every week, which is pretty darn cool. We love them. We had the live podcast there about a month ago now, and they've been a great partner for us dating back to last season. So we're excited that they're still on board through the end of football season into basketball.
Yeah, OG partner. We're glad to have them. Maybe a live podcast or something along those lines during the men's basketball season. Yeah. Maybe App State, maybe something fun. Looking ahead for all of that. And as well, another partner we have, all the major sports, it's Bet Online, are in action this week with college football playoffs ready to kick off. Bet Online is your number one destination for all of your sports wagering info, including news for pro football, the NBA, upcoming fights, and NHL games this season. Head to the website today, get in on the action, and see all of the updated odds for the week. When you sign up, remember to use code BELIEVE. That's promo code BLEAV, BELIEVE, to receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. So you throw $100 down on that first deposit, they'll hook you up with $50 for free to use on all of the action, whether it's NFL, whether it's NBA, MLB futures, NBA futures, NHL, whatever it is. I think right now, if I was a betting man, which I am, I like Dak Prescott to win the MVP. Bet Online, where the game starts. Oh, and we got one more. Our awesome friends over at Christopher William Jewelers, where it's both glamorous and laid back.
There's a reason Christopher William Jewelers has been voted Best of Virginia year after year. It's not just one thing that sets us apart. It's everything. It's the selection, extensive and unmatched, with every engagement ring, loose diamond, and fashion jewelry chosen for quality and brilliance. It's the service. From our diamond experts to our master goldsmith, our team shares a passion for what they do, and it shows. It's the atmosphere, both glamorous and laid back. See for yourself why people can't stop talking about Christopher William Jewelers in Harrisonburg and Weir's Cave.
Awesome. So before we dive into today's episode, if you're watching live on YouTube, Twitter, or Facebook, and you want to pitch in on the conversation, let us know what you're thinking. Ask us any questions, comment on Facebook or YouTube, or reply to this tweet on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. And if you're on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe so you never miss a live stream, you never miss a video. We're trying to build out that YouTube, and that would be great. And if you're listening on a podcast, be sure to, follow along, rate, subscribe, whatever it is that you do on your podcast platform, whether it's Apple Podcast, Spotify, or other. A rating goes a long way, and we would absolutely love if you guys could give us a quick little rating, only if it's 5 stars, though, please.
That's right. Yeah, if you're gonna crap on us, don't do it.
Yeah, please don't. So the Chesney era is here.
The Chesney era is here. He had his press conference. It was, kind of a standard press conference, but he's a very personable head coach.
Yes, it was probably the most cut and dry. He didn't really give out too much information in this press conference. No. It was Tuesday at 1:43 p.m. is when it began.
He was late. What is that about? Travel
was late. We don't know if it was him. Someone was late. He also was coming with a massive entourage. He shouted out each and every one of them.
Maybe that was it.
He had 3 kids. His wife was there. I would expect that. But then, like, it seemed like his in-laws may have been there, or his in-laws were watching.
I think, yeah, they weren't there, but he had like a ton of immediate family.
And his pastor was there.
Yeah, there were a lot of Chesney supporters there, which I thought was fun. But I did crack up with travel delays causing a 15-minute delay when it's like, you're in Harrisonburg. We run into traffic? Like, what do you mean there's a travel delay?
The delay was getting from Worcester, Massachusetts to James Madison at the Shenandoah Regional Airport.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's the only thing. But was there anything that really stood out to you? We'll get into news or snooze kind of quicker than normal with this one, but just general takeaways from the opening press conference.
None for me. No, I'm just kidding.
We're gonna do it.
I think he's obviously very well spoken. I thought that he's super engaging, and I think that will hold some value. I think fans are kind of taking away from what Curt Cignetti was a little bit more than they need to with some of their takes. We're like, oh my God, this guy can form a sentence. It's like Cignetti was not like an idiot who like couldn't speak. He was maybe a little bit more awkward than Chesney and like less polished, but he was pretty good, especially toward the end with the media. Like the McAfee stuff was great. Right. The stuff after like blowouts over Coastal, I thought were phenomenal for the most part, pretty good with the media. But the Chesney, I think, seems a little more polished, and I think he'll probably get along well with the media. I think he will get along well with donors, get along well with fans. He'll probably make more of an effort. I think what he had an event at O'Neill's Grill tonight. I don't know that Cignetti ever did anything like that, like a meet and greet kind of thing. So I think he's going to be a little bit more engaged in the community, which is a positive. But at the end of the day, fans are going to say right now they really care about that. It all comes down, like how he'll be viewed is all going to come down to on-field results, like it is with every coach, which is why fans love Cignetti, even though they claim not to after the fact.
I didn't know you were a Cignetti apologist.
I just found some of the comments so funny from fans where they're like, gosh, finally a guy who can like engage with people. It's like 3 weeks ago, Cignetti goes on the McAfee show and we're like, this is peak content. Like, this is unbelievable. And now we're like, he can't even do media. What?
Yeah, he would have some. He was just weird. Cignetti was just he didn't let the media in at all. Like practices were like open for a 10-minute frame, and it was very manufactured on who you could talk to and when you could talk to. He was very standoffish about his quarterback situation in fall camp. So there was just a lot of, I think he made it harder on himself, but also his opening press conference was funny when he was like, should I tell him about the pig story? And we were all like, this guy's a regular dude. Where I think Chesney is very calculated in what he says. He's a fantastic dude. From this press conference makes me want to run through a wall for him. I thought it was exactly what was needed. And like you said, I think he's going to fundraise at an exceptionally high clip. I think he's going to do something that, not a lot of coaches have necessarily done in the past few years, whether it's Withers, Houston, or Cignetti. I think Chesney has a real chance to go out there, really become part of the community for his 24 months in Harrisonburg, and really start to build a good foundation fundraising wise, because that's something we've kind of been missing out from coaches. We haven't necessarily seen them, kiss the baby, shake the hands of politicians and get $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, $50,000 donations secured from whether it's alumni or just people in the Harrisonburg area.
I like that. I think he'll be good at that. He's certainly engaging. I don't think he's going to like come into a post-game press conference and be like, Jordan McLeod missed 8 reads tonight. Can you imagine how many, like,
he's not going to say Alonzo Barnett got the yips.
Right.
Which Cignetti was just some of his post-game, like Cignetti was a different type of like they are just the polar opposites. Cignetti literally said, it's like when a golfer can't go through his backswing. That's what was happening to Alonzo out there. And it's like, Jesus, man.
Which at the same time, as a fan and like someone like covering the team sort of, was valuable. Like, it's the candid, like, honest feedback was great. So that's the part where I sort of push back. They're different, but I don't think one is better, or Worcester. But I don't think they're better
Worcester.
or worse.
It's Worcester.
Yeah, if you're from Boston. I think
not Worcester. My bad. Sorry about that.
I think like, I don't think he's necessarily better or worse than Cignetti. I think there's some things that he does that'll be really positive compared to Cignetti. But again, he's following up a 52-9 5-year stretch, an 11-1 season this year, where, like, if they were eligible, maybe they're playing in a New Year's Six Bowl or at least close to it. So I don't know. I'm excited for the Chesney era. I also think he's filling some big shoes.
He's filling some massive shoes. I mean, since Houston took over, Withers' era, like, was extremely massive in the impact it made on JMU, but like the wins and losses and postseason success weren't necessarily there.
Right.
But since Houston has taken over, he has massive, massive shoes to fill. And like, I think he's going to succeed. I think he's going to be a fantastic coach, but like, this is a really tough situation to come into. He mentioned it in the press conference. I'm not here to tear it down and rebuild it. I'm here to keep this momentum going and hopefully build on that momentum. You tell me, is that a harder spot to be in? Because if you lose 3 games this season, it's a failure.
Yeah, I think it's way harder than like his previous jobs where he had time to rebuild.
Syracuse, like if he had gone to Syracuse, he would have had years to rebuild. He didn't get hired there, but like he was in that running, one of the finalists. Like, that is a much different job than what this job is.
I think for the plus side for him, if he can keep the momentum rolling, dude's in a Power 5 spot probably right in 2 or 3 years. So it's an exciting spot for him, and I'm excited to see how he keeps it rolling in terms of like recruiting and the portal and things like that. He didn't get into a lot of his like philosophies in the press conference when it comes to recruiting or the portal or stuff like that. But it's going to be fascinating to see because, my expectations for year one of Bob Chesney depend a lot on what the roster looks like.
Yeah.
But I think, kind of like you're saying, based on some of the guys they're expected to return, based on what they can do in the portal and some of the guys in the recruiting class, if they can keep them, and the schedule, I mean, 8-4 is going to be feeling pretty frustrating for fans if that's what you get. I think it's got to be 9-3 or better to have people pleased. And even then, 9-3 might have a few fans kind of like grumbling.
Yeah. And I mean, on the offensive side, they're not losing necessarily a ton. I might be underselling that a bit. Kaelon Black just went into the portal. You have Jordan McLeod in the portal, but you're keeping a lot of those. Zach Horton's in the portal. Okay. So you're losing
a couple linemen too that are 3. They got 3 good ones in there now.
Yeah, so I mean, you are losing a good bit. I completely forgot about the lineman and that Zach Horton was in there, so I retract what I was saying. But like, you still have Elijah Surratt, you still have a good running wide receiver with him, and I would assume you're bringing in a running back. And as long as your offensive line can run block, your running back should be fine. This year, the offensive line kind of struggled with run blocking at times, which is why Kaelon and Tyson and Latrell weren't necessarily the best back there, but you're overall pretty fine on offense, where if you can bring in the right transfer quarterback, and that's a massive if, but if you can do that, you shouldn't have any drop off whatsoever on the offensive side. It'll also be really interesting, and we'll get into it in a little bit, about who he's bringing in coordinator wise, who we might expect him to bring in, how he's going to build out this staff. Those are going to be some really key hires. The defensive side, you don't need a world beating off defense on the defensive side to win the Sun Belt.
And I think they could have a pretty good, they should be good on both sides. Like, they, even with some of these portal guys, they have some really good players who are expected to return next year. I don't know. There's
Pons, Jacob Thomas,
Pons on
Trent Hendrick, Tyreek Tucker, Amar Thomas, Emmanuel Bush.
Mm-hmm. And even offensively, there's a lot of skill guys who are pretty good, I think. Surratt, Hudson, Maxwell Moss, Ymir Knight, Cole Potts on the offensive line. You got Aaron Gunn, who backed him up. Josh Toner is not in the portal. I don't think Tanner Morris is.
Wayne Knight is in the portal, though.
Wayne Knight is in the portal. That's correct. So like, there's a lot of ability there before you've even tried to add guys in the portal. Indiana went out and got Ohio's starting quarterback. So I don't know what that means for Jordan McLeod, but probably not going to Indiana. Interesting.
The leave a little bit too much. So earlier today, Bob Chesney was on 106.7 The Fan up in Washington, D.C. Maybe I was reading the tea leaves way too much, but he made it sound like that he's trying to get Jordan McLeod to stay.
I could see him making a push for that. And if he doesn't get that, maybe he tries to get Sluka or someone else in the portal. But yeah, I think McLeod coming back is definitely a possibility for the Dukes. So I don't know. They should have a really good team next year.
So what are your expectations for Chesney? Because you kind of avoided the question with his first year. Overall, what are your expectations for him from when he coaches his first game to when he coaches his last?
Yeah. To be honest with you, my expectations are that they can post a 9 or more win season in all of his years.
Yeah, my expectation is that whatever school hires him next, they can post a quarterback graphic using JMU quarterbacks.
Pretty normal stuff. I think it's realistic though that they could contend in year one. I don't know if it's my expectation, but contend to make the college football playoff as the group of 5 team in year one. So just to stress that, like, I'm not giving him any buffer in terms of like expectations or goals, because he's talked, right, wanting to accelerate the program.
Yeah.
The only real acceleration from this year is like undefeated or a Sun Belt championship, obviously, where you're playing the game, but then also like making a New Year's Six college football playoff kind of event. And that's doable.
Yeah, I think in his career, a college football playoff, it depends on how long he's here, but like within the next 3 years, I expect a college football playoff berth. You were on the cusp of it this year. In theory, you're not like, you should be able to, we don't rebuild, we retool, whatever that cliche is that teams use. You should be able to retool. Some of the stuff that's happening with the transfer portal and recruiting class, I feel like he's sitting on his hands a little bit too much right now. But if he can figure that, if he hits a couple home runs, if he hits a couple of doubles, all of a sudden this team is completely reloaded, and you're looking at another Sun Belt championship, Sun Belt East winner. And I think if you win the Sun Belt, especially through the Sun Belt East with only maybe one loss, you're a shoo-in for that group of 5 spot in the college football playoff. I expect this team to be contending for Sun Belt East titles and Sun Belt championships every year that he is here. So very much like you, I don't expect to fall off. If this team starts 1-3, that's a failure.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of pressure, but I think that's kind of fair. Should we talk a little recruiting and portal? You mentioned sort of, I guess, quote unquote, sitting on his hands a little bit. So he went on the DC radio station 106.7 The Fan. He said that for guys who are in the portal, he would like to hear back soon after. I think he said right after the bowl game on the 23rd. I don't know what exactly that means, right? I don't know that he's going to be like blowing up their phones on Christmas Day, being like,
well, no, I think what it means is the second that game, the whistle blows final, he's going to be in the locker room and he's going to go, yes or no. As they're coming in.
Are you with us or against us? He's it's going to be an interesting process with that, because that's still like 10 days away to know like how many scholarships you're playing with.
Yeah,
I thought he would have wanted an answer before the bowl game.
Yeah. Also, why did Kamara and Carter Miller decide not to play?
My expectation would be that they're like very much transferring and are like, I don't want any injury risk.
Okay,
for a game that I guess to them doesn't mean that much, maybe.
But okay, yeah, back to the transfer. Yeah, I think he seems to be moving very methodically. Is that the word you use? Deliberately.
Yeah, deliberate, yeah.
Everything that he's doing everything's taking a little longer than me as a fan. I'll put on my fan hat right now. Me as a fan really want. Like, I wanted him to be hired and have the press conference on Friday. Instead, it was until Tuesday. I wanted him to be, announcing transfer after transfer. I wanted us to be announcing that we're bringing in Kyle McCord yesterday. And so it feels like there's like no forward momentum. Like, recruits and transfers weren't on campus to visit until like today or tomorrow. I felt like that should have been happening over the weekend on Saturday and Sunday. Like, it feels all like we're behind 48 hours. And even felt like that during the hiring process. But again, that is me talking with my fan hat on, where I want everything immediately.
Hard to see too, and hard to fully piece it all together, but obviously there's a little bit of a process. And I think maybe the high level P5s are a little more active early, and they're getting the big NIL kids, and they sign some, and you can get some good players after that. But definitely a difference if you see like the way Kurt Signetti and his staff are tweeting right now. It's like, we got another one, and then they announce recruits and transfers, and it's like, okay, what do we have? So it's a difference, especially from last year. I was looking at some of the dates when people committed. McLeod committed in like November.
Yeah, he was already off the team. He didn't
really count. But like Surratt committed December 18th, right? So that'd be 4 days from now as a transfer commit. So it's interesting. We'll see if they start to get some transfers coming in. And I wonder how many guys he thinks he can get out of the portal, because there's a lot of really good players in the portal. I wonder if he's like, hey, if I have some time with them, if I can be involved in some practices and they like what they see, and they realize that maybe the NIL money, because for some of the players, I don't think the NIL is going to be quite what they expected. Sometimes they're like, oh, I can get 6 figures. And then you go in and you're not getting 6 figures.
Yeah.
Then you could want to come back. I wonder if he's like, hey, I think I can get 5+ back.
I would hope so, because looking at kind of who's been offered where, and I don't mean this as a slight with what I'm about to say, but it seems like Chauncey Logan is a candidate to potentially come back. It seems like Aiden Fisher is a candidate to potentially come back. Jordan McLeod is a candidate to potentially come back. And that's 3 huge names. Zach Horton, James Carpenter, they seem like, I don't know them personally, but they seem like JMU through and through, and like would like to stay. But again, they might have NIL bags waiting for them. But I also don't know how big NIL bags are for a tight end and a defensive tackle. But I would not be shocked if Chauncey Logan, Aiden Fisher, and Jordan McLeod all return.
Yeah, I think Logan had posted that he got offered by South Florida, as did Brent Austin. I'll look it up to make sure I have it right. But South Florida offered, and then I think New Mexico with Bronco Mendenhall offered Chauncey Logan. That's a full-on rebuild in New Mexico. I don't know. I don't know that would necessarily sway him. So I think there's a possibility that they could can convince some of those guys to come back depending on their offers. So yeah, I think that'll be super interesting to keep an eye on. Matt Burkett, I want to make sure I have the name right. Cornerbacks coach, believe he was at JMU previously. Yeah, he was. So he was on JMU's defense. He is at South Florida and offered Austin and Logan. So there's some familiarity with him.
Yeah.
So maybe that's would sway him to go down there. I mean, kind of fun to play football at South Florida, but I think JMU is sort of in that same realm and probably has a better team right now. So if you can get some of those guys, then it becomes a little less obvious or necessary, right, to add other players from other colleges in the portal or whatever, because you're just returning like clear starters. So maybe he thinks that that's part of it, is like, hey, I'm recruiting like people on campus right now.
Yeah, I think that could be very well it. And who knows how it's all gonna shake out, because if all of a sudden he brings back 50% of who's in the portal, I think we have a very different tone of how he's handling it all. We don't know what's happening behind closed doors. He says he's staying up late and is just like grinding away, and he kind of strikes me as a grinder, so that doesn't shock me.
He also kind of seems like
Sean McVay. I agree.
He has Sean McVay vibes, but in the way that like Signetti and Sunseri and those other coaches are like building hype around Indiana, I think he kind of realizes like that's completely unnecessary for like where JMU is. And he's just like quietly working. Like, because he had transfers and like recruits on campus today and had said nothing until the interview of like, yeah, we got people on campus today. And like, he hasn't said anything about his staff. I feel very confident over the last week he has put staff stuff together and just not said anything publicly. So I do think there's going to be this period at some point in the next month
where they get start like a deluge of just this guy, this transfer. We got Matthew Sluka, and that's like buried in just news.
I think he's just going to be like staff, player, and everyone's gonna be like, what the heck? Well, I think when it comes, I think it's going to come in like a rush. And then going into the spring, I think fans are going to have like full on Bob Chesney is a god kind of hype. Like, I think he's going to piece it together like quietly.
Yeah.
And then when it's announced, it's got a chance to be pretty interesting and special, I think.
All right. I love it. That brings us to news or snooze. Bennett's going to give me 3 quotes. I'm going to decide if they're newsworthy or snoozeworthy. It's presented by Christopher William Jewelers, the only place in Harrisonburg, in the entire valley that's both glamorous and laid back. So if you're in the market for some engagement rings, really nice necklaces, whatever it may be for this holiday season, be sure to check out Christopher William Jewelers in Harrisonburg and Weir's Cave. News or snooze, all press conference all the time. Hit me.
All right. This is Bob Chesney. He's talking about, he was asked why JMU made sense for him. He says, it's not in the deep South, an area I don't understand. It's not out in Ohio, maybe an area I'm not familiar with. It's not out in Buffalo, New York. This is 2.5, 3 hours away from my home.
He's newsworthy.
Okay, tell me why.
Well, because one of the biggest questions we had coming into this was, how's he going to recruit this? He's been in Worcester for the last few years and recruiting up in the Northeast. And we were like, well, this is coming down into the Virginia, the DMV area. He mentioned his time. I think he was 6 years at Johns Hopkins as an assistant. So he was like, I understand that area, and 2.5, 3 hours away from his house. So he knows this area pretty well. I also liked it's not out in Buffalo, New York. Felt like a little bit of a shot where he wanted to say Syracuse.
Definitely seemed interesting. Yeah, it's not like I was taking the Syracuse job.
It's not like I didn't know what I was doing in Syracuse, but no, I think it really kind of put to ease a lot of my worries about his recruiting stuff. And I think he also mentioned in it that he wants to find people who are familiar with this recruiting area when he's making those hires.
Yeah, Pennsylvania's been pretty good for JMU, so I think it's cool that he's got those connections.
Also really cool of him to understand that Virginia's like not the SEC country.
Yes.
Because when he said that, I was like, yeah, you're right. Like, this isn't the deep South. You're not recruiting Georgia and Alabama and Louisiana and even Florida really that heavily. You're recruiting Virginia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Westford, like that area. You don't got to go into the deep South. Like, he understands there's a difference between the South and the deep South.
And you should be able to do that better than like any other Sunbelt program, right? Like, I don't think
better than a lot of, I think better than with your success, you should be able to at least stay. If a kid has Virginia Tech and UVA on their list, JMU should still be able to be on that list. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
you should have enough cachet now built up within the high school football community that you are able to stay with those schools. Maybe you don't beat them out just yet, but you should be able to stay with them. Also really important to note, he was making a very, very pointed point at high school coaches in the area and around all of Virginia. He said it multiple times that our practices are open. I want the high school coaches to come. I want to build that relationship. And that's something Cignetti never said. And I think that's, granted, it didn't really matter because Cignetti got a 4-star in Jaja Boyd and was just killing. I don't know what Kurt Cignetti said to these kids in his recruiting visits.
And never say it.
Yeah, you're right. But like really interesting stuff that he was so adamant about getting high school coaches involved in the process.
I also thought, and he seems like super nice, so I don't think he'd ever be like outright offended, especially in an opening presser. Cignetti was, by the way. One of the
his opening presser?
Somebody asked him about like not dealing with NIL. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like,
oh, in Indiana's I thought you meant
sorry. I don't think he was at JMU. No, he was at Indiana though. But Chesney seemed like to make many points that like I'm from Pennsylvania, right? And had been in Baltimore. Like the idea that I'm like I grew up in like the far tip of Maine is very much wrong. Like he was kind of seemed like the point he was trying to get across a couple times.
Yeah. So newsworthy.
All right. I like this one here. I did not coach FCS football as an FCS football coach. I did not just go on and say, this is just FCS football. Let's run it that way. I spent many trips, many hours, many dollars meeting with NFL programs and FBS programs. And when you look into the way our recruiting is done, our sports science is done, our practice is done, our schematics are done, typo by me. The overall run of our program is much more like an NFL program than even an FBS program.
Newsworthy.
Okay. What do you like about it?
Thank you for the follow-up question. No, I think it was quite interesting because I think he must be on Twitter and like knew every like worry us JMU fans had about this, because our worry was, oh no, he was an FCS football coach, not even at a North Dakota State, right, like a Missouri, like he was at a Patriot League school. Granted, I don't think JMU fans have much to talk about when it comes to besmirching a Patriot League team. We only beat them by like 40 earlier this year, and then we lost to Colgate in the playoffs twice. But so the Patriot League clearly a thorn in our side. But so that was always kind of that talking point. Man, yeah, he's a great FCS coach, but what has he done? I mean, he's just in the Patriot League. He couldn't even win the Patriot League this year. Come on, like, what are we doing? Then when he said that, he really made it a point to be like, yeah, I get we were FCS, but like we weren't running that program like an FCS program. We weren't running it like you guys do at the FBS level now. We were trying to replicate an NFL offense, an NFL practice. And I thought that was just a very, very good point for him to make, because he must have known. Chris Brooks, the SID for football, must have done a good job at prepping him as well. Like, here are the things that we really want to make sure that JMU fans have a clear understanding of coming out of this press conference. That right there was a fantastic answer.
This is one of the few answers he said, like, without a smile, where it was like very clear of like, the question was essentially like, why do you think you're ready for the job? And it was almost like, again, not like offended, but I think part of him is like, because I'm clearly ready for the job. Like, what do you mean? Why am I ready for the job? I think it's going to be interesting to see exactly how he does it, and if like how open it is to the public, some of his practices. I'd love to get in there and watch like a practice and see what his schedule is like, because everyone around him says he's got it, down to the minute, which is not like rare. Coaches schedule it out pretty succinctly, but seems like he knows what he's doing. He also went on to say at the end of this answer that they had played 4 FBS teams over the last like 3 seasons, were 2-2, and their 2 losses were by a possession, which is a very fair point of like, put Holy Cross in the MAC and they're a good MAC team. You know what I mean? Like, they're an FCS team, but they were playing like a G5 team.
Like JMU was before they made the jump. I will say what I didn't like in that quote, and what I didn't like in a lot of the press conference, and he's fixed it now. He fixed it on his hit earlier today on the Fan in DC. He was using we and our, but referring to Holy Cross.
He kind of went back and forth. He had some where he was like we, and there was a lot of we's.
But like that FCS football coach, he was like, our practice is done, our schematics are done, the overall run of our program, and he was referring to Holy Cross. And I was just like, sir, it's not UL anymore, it's us. We are JMU. You're at Duke now. Please refer to us as we and Holy Cross as them. Thank you.
That does make me think he's going to bring a lot of his staff with him, though, the way he talks about like the way they run things.
Yeah.
Anyway, the other thing, he has the verbal crutch. He says right a lot, like right.
Oh God, his rights.
Those are coming.
Why'd we do that? Why'd we just break the glass for everyone listening? And
I think everyone knows that one already.
I don't know if everyone. We were talking with Tom, and he didn't realize it until we just started texting right in the group chat constantly, and he was like, I notice it now. Right.
I kind of like it. It gets me fired up when he's like right. I'm like right. Right. Okay, last one. This is probably the best one. Somebody asked him about sort of like he stressed a lot personal relationships and motivating people. He goes, I need to show up every single day the same way. Whatever I'm going through in my personal life, I need to show up for them like it is the greatest day of my life. If you went to Disney World and you watch Mickey Mouse walking around kicking rocks and he's having a bad day, that would impact you in a major way. I understand that I am one of one on this team.
Could you imagine Mickey Mouse walking around Disney World?
What an incredible visual.
Hey, Mickey, what's going on? I hate my life. You're like, but Mickey, this is the greatest day of my life. He just like cusses you out and just kicks a rock. That's a snooze-worthy quote, just because like it's boring. There's not a lot of oomph behind it. It's an important quote. It makes a lot of sense. And I'm glad he has that outlook, but it's boring. Cool. Okay. Yeah. Show up, be good. Although the Mickey Mouse analogy was fantastic.
I think it's interesting because I have questioned myself listening to him. Like, is the positive thing like a facade? You know what I mean? Like, is that going to stop after like week 3? Doesn't seem like it. Seems like he's got that Sean McVay kind of like, he just like, this is who he is. And he's got that constant energy, which I think will be interesting to watch throughout the course of the season.
I don't want JMU ever to lose. We'll be very excited to see his first loss press conference.
Positive AF.
And that's going to piss me off.
Yeah. You watch some of the Holy Crossers where they like lose to Armies, like, 3 or 4 plays. We want those to go the other way. We're disappointed by it, but fought really hard. And it's just like Signetti would have been in there. It's like, look, we called the perfect pass plays and they can't throw a football. And that's my fault.
Look, the guy was open. Jordan made the wrong read. I can't go out there and tell him where to throw it. We worked on it all at practice, and then we get in the game, and he just messes it up. What more do you expect from me?
Tino's on the headset. He's screaming. What are we doing? What are we doing? Oh, everyone wants me to throw it more. I'm going to miss Signetti's pressers.
You know what I'm going to miss? Can I say what I'm about to say now that he's gone?
I don't know.
I'm going to miss Kurt Signetti sliding into my DMs.
I didn't get a personal one. We just had
I got a personal one when I was commenting on JMU's first down run usage, and he essentially called out Jordan McLeod.
Remember when he told us that Kobe White was about to be like a game changer receiver and he never played a snap? That was sick.
Should we say that's a lot of stories? Never mind. Indiana fans, if you're listening, Indiana media, if you're watching or listening, somehow found this podcast, keep your DMs open.
He'll get in there eventually, yeah. There's no doubt about it. I think that's all I've got quote-wise.
That's awesome. So do you want to head on over to the Armed Forces Bowl where JMU is getting ready with a little meal prepping?
Yeah, they're prepping for it, which is good to see.
Yeah, I'm glad for him. We'll do a full preview next week. Maybe try and find an Air Force football beat reporter. I'm not sure if they exist.
There's probably somebody.
We'll try and get someone to kind of preview the game, break it down, what to expect out of the triple option Air Force team who've lost their last 4. But for right now, we want to break down the coaching staff that Coach Robo has brought in because there were only 4 JMU paid coaches on the staff after Signetti left and took like the whole staff with him. And so we were questioning, what are they going to do? Are they going to need me and you to call plays? Are we going to be arguing on the sidelines about EPA, expected points added? You want to run a run play? And I'm like, well, I don't want to lose any points on this play. Let's run a pass because on average, that will give us more than negative 0.1 points. We want to get 0.1 point. You know, we could have just been arguing that all game and we would have gotten delay of game after delay of game. Instead, they did the smart thing and they brought in a group of actual coaches. Do you want to break down who the coaches are that are coming in for the Armed Forces Bowl on December 23rd in Fort Worth, Texas?
Yeah, still feel like we would have been good candidates, but
I'm a little upset we didn't even get a call, honestly. I mean, that would have been, we would have been I think after the first quarter, we worked ourselves out. We worked out kind of how we wanted to call the game because clearly we wouldn't have done any prep before the game at all.
No, this is just for the game.
Could you imagine? I think we would have done great. It would have been like Madden. Always go for it on 4th down, onside kick, never punt.
Yeah, zone read McLeod. You're gonna have to keep this one. Go. We know what we're doing. But they brought in, I think it's 5 that Robo mentioned in a recent press conference. So they got John Strollo. This one's cool. Was Robo's coach when he played in the late 1990s.
How old is that guy?
I think he was born in 1954. So someone else can do the math on that. 70-ish, I think. I guess that math isn't really hard. It's like 2024 right now, basically. Anyway, good coach. He has coached at a lot of different stops at various colleges, including Duke and Penn State. I read some article that I think he was doing tight ends for Penn State in like 2012 and 2013. And I guess he had gone at a lot of like smaller schools before that. And I guess Penn State fans were like, oh, is he even qualified to coach here? He had like decades of coaching experience, some article. And then like apparently his like tight ends were like all conference. And they're like, oh.
Yeah, he does.
Snobby, ridiculous article. Anyway, but he also, I guess at some point in his career was at a school that was running triple option. So he has some triple option background. Robo's quote here that I thought was fun. He says, I called him up and I said, I need your help. And he said, when do I get there? Which is just so sweet for like a retired coach, which I imagine he'll be involved like going into the game. And I don't know if they're allowed to be on the sidelines. I don't know like what the rules are for.
I have no idea. I would imagine yes.
But that's like right up until Christmas. So I kind of dig this where the guy's just like responsibilities. I'm there. Like through the holidays.
Could you imagine he's like drinking a Jack and Coke on his lazy boy? He gets a call from Robo and Robo's like, Coach, we need you. When do you need me? When do you need me, son?
I'll be there. Which is also awesome that like he coached him 25 years ago and it's just like anything you need, I'm there. Kind of speaks to like how well respected Robo is.
Yeah.
Another one, they brought in Brian Ginn, he worked with the Chicago Bears as a special teams assistant in 2020, 2021, also spent like 2-ish decades as an assistant with Delaware and was their quarterback, I think in the late 90s, maybe when they were running the wing T. which I think we had a conversation with Andy Lohman about. Tubby Raymond, I believe it was, right? With the wing tee at Delaware. I think he was playing for Tubby, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't think I was involved in that conversation.
Yeah, we were definitely doing it. You were involved. I swear you were. Maybe it was someone else. It was a while ago.
Was it Dom's wedding?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think it was like over text or something because it was like a Twitter thread.
Oh, okay.
Because we were talking, not that it matters. Anyway, but he's working with special teams, but also has some wing tee background. You'll find that triple option was a key thing here because Air Force is running a triple option.
Do you want to say maybe now we'll have a dynamic return game?
Yeah, a little something there. Also, Chesney's sort of like around and helping.
That's my favorite storyline where he's like, well, I'm not going to be too involved, but like, I'm going to have a whistle.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know if I'll have a huge role, but my drills are going to be implemented. It's like, well, that
seems like you're pretty involved.
And then I think Riggert at one point asked him if he would have a headset. And he's like, I don't know yet. So like he might have a headset on the sidelines. He's going to let them like be coordinators and stuff, but he'll definitely be there, I think, on the sideline, whether he has a headset or not.
Yeah.
They've also
Here's a question.
Yeah.
How many over under 3.5 shots to Bob Chesney on the sidelines from the broadcast? And they mentioned something like, this is JMU's new coach. Over under 3.5.
Over, I bet he gets an interview too.
Oh, okay.
Like a sideline interview.
Whatever you guys think, let us know on Twitter.
Unless he's got headset and is locked in and they can't grab him like mid-game, then maybe he would give someone else like the halftime. I don't know. There's a lot of options there.
Yeah, there is. All right. You say over 3.5 cuts to him on the broadcast.
I think so.
Plus an interview. I like it.
I think it. All right. John Reagan, former Maryland assistant. He coached the offensive line, I think a couple years ago, has also coached at Air Force and Army. So he knows triple options well. So he's there helping them out with various activities. I believe Nick Kidwell is actually sort of like heading the offensive line though, which is kind of fun. They have Matt Hackman, a Stony Brook. He was Stony Brook's defensive coordinator and associate head coach this year.
Yeah, and then Stony Brook cleaned house.
Yeah. So I guess he's got some free time. So him and Stone Manello, who is an assistant under him, are both there helping out. And I guess they know how to defend the triple option well. Marcus Hall Oliver, who is the safeties coach and recruiting coordinator for JMU, told the media Wednesday, something's driving by. Like a I don't know, a transformer or something. And I guess he had never coached against triple option, I think was what he was saying. So the more triple option defensive help they can get, the better. But they basically brought in 5 like very experienced coaches to sort of just aid in bowl prep, which I thought was pretty cool that they were even able to figure that out.
Yeah, that's awesome. Ross or 11, will Chesney ever throw his headset?
Would be absolutely sick if he had a minor role, had a headset though, and was just tossing it like constantly.
You know what? All of those, I'm really excited they brought in all of these coaches. It's really kind of a cool thing to see that Robo has that much cachet in the coaching world to be able to call up these people and bring them in on such short notice, like you said, through the holiday season. Because you got to imagine they're living at like the Holiday Inn for the next 10 days without their family. It's just football coaches are a different breed of human. But all of that led me to believe that also my mind's going like 5 different places right now. First, how awkward is it going to be with Tyson Lawton and his former coach?
They might love it. They might be a reunion of sorts.
It could also be like, man, you deserted us in your last year of eligibility. We needed you. You got Chuck Priori fired.
That would be quite the take if you bring that up to him.
That'll be my post-game press conference. Second question is just as important. Feels like we're going to run the ball a whole heck of a lot with all these offensive line coaches and like triple option coaches.
There's so many like triple option coaches who not just defended it, but like were running it. That'd be sweet if JMU came out in a triple option. It was like, let's do this thing. Like you want to run it, we're going to run it too. And yeah, I don't know. I also do. We talked about Kamara opting out. How much of it was just like, you see like how they block and they're just like taking your legs out on these as a defensive lineman. You're just like, no.
I think that is important because he also saw what happened to Jalen Green. Like, I think Kamara opting out didn't shock me because you see Jalen Green's potential NFL. Like, he's an All-American, and all of a sudden, like, he may not get drafted because he doesn't have a knee right now.
Yeah. But But I thought that was cool. I think that's an interesting story idea that you had there where they're all staying. I wonder if they, some of the coaches know each other decently well. I wonder if they're like, yo, let's get an Airbnb in Harrisonburg for like a month. That'd be
Do you
sweet.
think they're all just at Robo's house?
I wonder if some of them are staying at the coaches' like houses or something too.
I mean, because you got 4 coaches on staff who have homes.
Yeah.
But think of how cool a coach's Airbnb would be. You walk in there like 2 days before the game, before they travel, and they have like whiteboards everywhere with just games.
I bet they're hanging out because you've got a decent amount of free. Well, especially if you're like those coaches who aren't in other jobs. Like it's not like you're recruiting. You know what I mean? Like you coach the practice and then you got a ton of free time.
If any of those coaches are listening, please let us know how it is. We'd love to.
It sounds awesome.
On that. That sounds like a vibe. Sign me up. Coach Robo, I'll do it. I'll be your water boy.
That'd be incredible.
I'm on PTO starting next week until the new year. I'm ready. I can be there.
We like that. We like that a lot.
We like that. So anything else you want to add on football before we kind of shift over to the other side of greatness?
I don't think so.
All right. So on the other side, JMU men's basketball, they're out to a 9-0 start, the best start in program history. That 9-0 mark also coincides with Bob Chesney being the 9th coach in program history for JMU football. But just an insane start. The trio, or I guess whatever it may be, TJ Bickerstaff and Terrence Edwards have been fantastic. I love Michael Green. He's been electric this season. The Dukes are really good. Are you surprised at all by how good they have been this year to start?
A little bit. I knew they'd be solid, but I don't know. That Michigan State wins, maybe not looking quite as good, but Michigan State winning that one on the road, still hard. Kent State's got a real nice team. So to win those first 2, I was like, oh, I'm very impressed. And then they've just kind of demolished pretty much everyone. I like how we went to the Radford game, and that was like by far probably their worst showing of the year. I still won it. But outside of that, they've looked just so good. They've won their last, 4 by double digits, all by at least 15, including a 15-point win over ODU that probably could have been more.
That was with their 2 best shooters going 2 of 11 from deep.
They're just really good. They're really good. Their next 3 games are against horrendous opponents. I think they've got a chance to go into 2024 undefeated. I don't know, like they could push 30 wins if they have a crazy year. They should definitely get 25 or more, right?
Yeah, I'm legitimately shocked that this team is undefeated still. Sitting at 9-0, you took down Michigan State, who are 136 in KenPom. But I don't know that's
the Dukies.
Thank you. That's awkward. 34th in KenPom. That's awkward.
Can you imagine if they flew into that book?
But like they went on the road and they took down Michigan State, and the Kent State just absolutely statistically speaking, they should not be undefeated, but here they are 9-0. They're led by Terrence Edwards, who averages 17.9. TJ Bickerstaff averages 16.6. Michael Green, 12.1. And Noah Friedel, 11.2. And Julian Wooden right on the outside of double digits at 9.2. Like, you just have this great offensive threat. And for the first time, it seems like their defense actually their offense doesn't put their defense in bad situations, so their defense shines even more. They're not turning the ball over at an insanely high clip. They're looking just really, really good. And yeah, at this point, I was expecting wins over ODU and Keystone and Buffalo and even Fresno State. But those wins against Michigan State, Kent State wasn't expecting. And a win against Southern Illinois was kind of a toss-up. So you're sitting here at 9-0, taking down teams that at the start of the season, I wasn't 100% sure you'd even kind of be in the game with. This is amazing. Are they this year's FAU?
They're good. I mean, it's crazy. It's like mid-December, and I feel like their biggest obstacle the rest of the way is focus. Like, if they remain focused and play the way they're capable of playing, they're going to win like 90% of their remaining games. The Sun Belt sucks, respectfully. Bad.
You don't have to be respectful. That is okay. It's bad.
Really bad. It's like App State, JMU, and then everybody kind of stinks. And there's a couple other teams in there that are like, all right, like you might be competitive. Like you could convince me that Louisiana is decent, Arkansas State on the right day or whatever. But overall, pretty bad. There's some really Georgia Southern's horrendous, like just a terrible basketball team. I think they're 0-10. Coastal's terrible. Their coach retired after like only a handful of games. They just a mess. A lot of these teams are just not good. So you'd expect them to win a lot of games.
So do you know how many teams are in KenPom?
Was it 353 or something?
362.
God, there's so many basketball.
So here's a question. Georgia Southern's offense ranks where in the nation?
Out of 362?
335. Guess what Georgia Southern's KenPom is?
They're sub threes, aren't they? Like
326. Coastal also sub 307, and ULM just outside of that at 278.
Oh my God, man.
Like, it is bad conference. Louisiana, who you said might be good, is 156.
Two teams in the top 150, right? It's just JMU and App.
And they're both top 80.
That's bad, though.
No, it's very bad, but it's funny how JMU and App State are going to run through the Sun Belt, probably go 1-1 against each other, winning their home games, and then just be on a collision course for a championship game. And they both will probably finish the year with good KenPoms because they're going to beat up on bad teams. They're going to get road wins. They're going to destroy teams at home. And then one of them's not going to make the NCAA tournament because they just haven't been tested. And the thing is, JMU's non-conference was so bad that they're done being tested until their App State game at home on January 13th. And for App State, I mean, they didn't really get tested all that much either. They had a home win against Auburn, which is a fantastic win. Don't get me wrong, but their away games this season, they've lost Northern Illinois, Oregon State. Then they picked up wins against UNC Dub and Murray State on neutral courts. But their only true road win this season was against Queens, which is a transitioning D2 to D1 school.
That's tough. And then the other thing that's hard is with the KenPom is some of these games, you look at the projected spread, they're supposed to win by 20. So if they don't win a conference game or two by 20, they'll drop. So it's an interesting one where, for their metrics, especially as they build, the longer they stay undefeated, the more they build an at-large case. The margin of victory will end up mattering because the KenPom factors in. I believe that's part of the net, or at least predictive ranking, similar to KenPom are part of the net. So if you want to look good, not only do you want to beat Coastal, you want to beat Coastal by 40, right? You want to pull a football on them.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a shame how bad this out of conference schedule is.
And it's tough because it wasn't horrible at the Michigan State, Kent State, Southern Illinois. You're doing your best with those. The next three are just god awful. Hampton, Coppin State, Morgan State, all sub 300. Then you factor in the fact that the conference isn't very good. And you really don't have, by the end of the season, depending on what App does, depending on what Kent State does, is Michigan State your only top 100 win? Maybe. And they're 4-5. Michigan State's not actually good.
There's a chance Southern Illinois might sneak into the top 100.
That's true. So maybe some of these look a little better. You can root for Michigan State to figure some stuff out, but it's going to be tough if you have more than a loss, to be honest with you, to have an at-large case.
I will say it's pretty awesome that they're Michigan State, Kent State, and Southern Illinois, all teams on the fringe of the 100 of Kent. Well, I guess Michigan State's not on the fringe, but on the fringe of top 100 wins are all away from home. So you don't need them to be as good. So I think in the net, if it's a top 75 road win game, it's a quad 1 win, right?
I think that might be right. I think that's quad 1.
It's something insane. So these teams, they might have a good late season push to get into that top 75 in the net. And it's a road win or a neutral site win. All of a sudden you're looking at a few more quad 1, quad 2 wins. And that may help bolster your at-large case late in the season. And if you can pick up a win against App State on the road, that might be a quad 1 win by the end of the year. So all of a sudden, this terrible non-conference schedule could end up benefiting you a little bit. But yeah, the fact that this conference schedule is so garbage, it's really going to hurt any type of hope of getting an at-large without going undefeated. And if you go undefeated, you're winning the NCAA, you're winning the Sun Belt Championship.
Why not?
So you already get it. Why not the NCAA? If you're going undefeated, you won the NCAA tournament, technically.
It's just, I hope they get in because they are an NCAA tournament team. They are so fun to watch. They're electric offensively, like you said. They've got multiple scorers. Everyone who graduated last year, they had some solid players graduate, but they weren't the most efficient. God, they are efficient offensively. I don't think the defense has even reached its peak. They're really, really good. And we didn't even talk about Jalen Carey, who's just shocking that he's 18.
Well, here we go. His hands are massive. And I got to ask, we got three kind of superlatives: most important player, most surprising player, and most impactful transfer. So far this season, I think we both can agree Terrence Edwards is the most important player. Leads the team in points this season with 17.9, and he's second on the team with 5 rebounds per game, and he's shooting at a solid clip. What is he shooting at? About 45%, 43 from deep. So overall, really solid season for Terrence Edwards, putting together a Sun Belt Player of the Year type of game, type of season. So I think we can both agree he's the most important player, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
Bob Chesney says yes.
Most surprising player, you mentioned him. I think it's the 18-year-old Jalen Carey.
Yeah, he's just like comes in for Bickerstaff and is like a perfect backup. They abused ODU in the paint. ODU is a little bit undersized, and they hit him with sort of like some pick and roll action that they kind of had no answer for. Bickerstaff was 9 of 12. Carey was 6 of 6. Did not miss. Had 13 points in 17 minutes. It was just really, really good. He's been phenomenal, and his size makes him a good defender, right? Because it's hard for them to kind of move him down there. Same with Bickerstaff. They're big. They're athletic. He's a phenomenal recruit, and to be honest with you, pretty shocked that he ended up at JMU. Like he's very good.
He's a very good player. He had a career high 16 points against Keystone. Back that up with a career high against Division I teams with 13 against ODU, like you said. But the most important thing, he's had the last 2 games played without a single foul committed, and over his last 3 games played, he's only committed 1 foul, which is pretty big considering how he started this season. 4 fouls, 3 fouls, 2 fouls, no fouls, 1 foul, 3 fouls. Like he was kind of a fouling machine, wasn't really getting his feet in the right spot, was moving a lot when he was trying to block shots and down in the paint. So it's really good to see that as of late, he hasn't been getting the whistle. He's doing what he needs to do while also being just absolutely potent from the field. He's 14 of 16 from the field over the last 2 games.
I also made a big stink in multiple seasons and off seasons about them not being able to block shots. They're blocking a lot more shots this year and defending the 2 much better.
Before we get to most impactful transfer, is it time to say sorry about how we thought of Byington's roster construction?
He absolutely killed this transfer cycle. This
recruiting class.
This roster is phenomenal. He put together just a perfect roster construction. We talked about like the lack of height. Bickerstaff and Carey might not have like the 6'10", 6'11" number, but they play like real bigs and they can block shots. Wooden's blocking some. Edwards can get in there, even Friedel occasionally. It's a great mid-major roster.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. Moving from that, most impactful. I'll say sorry. I'm sorry, Mark Byington.
Yeah,
I'm
me too.
So sorry. We had a group chat name that the Dukes need bigs, and we were getting mad every time that a new guard was announcing that they were transferring to JMU or someone under 6'9". Well, you knew what you were doing. This is why I'm not a coach. I apologize. This is why I'm a podcaster. Most impactful transfer. Whoever you don't say with this answer, I think I'm going to go with the other person.
All right, I'm going Bickerstaff. This guy is a monster in the post, putting up absurd numbers. Seems like he's kind of unstoppable, has an elite offensive game where he can find ways to score in the post more so than the previous bigs JMU had. Great rebounder, can get in there and block the occasional shot. Really just an unbelievable ad, especially somebody who rebounded well at a power conference school in Boston College. Like to add him, the experience, the rebounding, the scoring. They have a big to go with Edwards and the guards, right? Which I'm sure you're going to pick a guard here as your most impactful transfer.
Well, if you had picked the guard, I was going to pick TJ Bickerstaff, in fairness. This is just trying to show the love to all the impactful transfers, because Michael Green, the grad student from the Bronx, has been absolutely electric this season. He's averaging 12 points per game. He's coming off of a 13-point performance against ODU. Before that was a 21-point performance against Keystone. Before that, a 14-point performance against Buffalo. He is absolutely electric. He averages about 5 assists per game with only about 1.7 turnovers per game. Having that type of significant assist to turnover ratio from the point guard spot is something that we haven't really seen all that often the last few years. And he's shooting at an extremely solid clip. He is shooting 46% from the field, 46% from behind the arc, Bennett. Do you get how insane that is to be shooting 46% from three?
Before the season, I was like, oh, they're a small ball team that can't shoot the three. They're shooting like 40% from three. They're one of like the 25 best 3-point shooting teams in the country. And Green's a key part of that.
They have 4 guys this season who have shot 33s or more. 3 of them are shooting 40%, 42% or better. Terrence Edwards, 42.4, Noah Friedel, 43.4, and Michael Green, 45.8. The only person who has shot 30 or more threes this season and have a sub 42% 3-point shooting percentage is Julian Wooden, and I trust he's going to get back on track.
I believe there was a sequence against ODU where I think it was Green maybe like drove toward the rim and got blocked. Somebody else rebounded it and kicked it to him out for 3 like immediately, and he nailed it and like turned to the crowd at ODU and was like, quiet down. And I was like, oh my God, they made a blocked shot look like offense, where they're like, oh, perfect. That creates a nice little open 3-point shot. The way they're moving the ball, shooting the ball, they can go in transition. It's just, I don't know. They're really good. And it's such a bummer that it's going to go Hampton, Coppin State, Morgan State instead of like a VCU or something. But that's sort of my only concern here is they're not going to be tested enough going to late in the season. I'd like to have a few more tougher matchups.
Let's zoom that out for a second. So you got Hampton, Coppin State, Morgan State coming up to finish out the non-conference schedule. 315, 361, 347, respectively, in KenPom ratings. Not good to have 3 sub 300 teams back to back to finish out your non-conference schedule. From there, you got Texas State, Louisiana, Southern Miss, South Alabama, all before you host App State on January 13th. None of those teams are in the top 175, except for top 150, of KenPom.
Yeah. I mean, you could be, what is that?
Good.
15-0, 16-0, going to the App State game against a really good team that's a rival at home. That place is going to be going insane if that's the case, especially if App State keeps it going. So I guess on the plus side, you've got like a clear, it seems like, right? You've got a clear potential. Hey, we're going 1v1 versus this other team that happens to be a rival that you have like great football history with for the league title, which will be sweet if that's the way it actually plays out. I just wish there was a little more depth across the league, or a tougher non-conference games here and there, because they're good enough to get tested and beat good teams. They just don't have a ton of like really good teams on the schedule.
They're good enough to score 5 points in 5 seconds.
That's exactly right.
Last question for men's basketball before we head over to women's. The likelihood of going undefeated. They're projected to win every single one of their remaining games except for App State in Boone, which is a 43% chance of a win. That's still pretty good. They're projected to finish this season 26-4. KenPom gives them a chance at 1.4% to go undefeated, one of the highest marks of the remaining undefeated teams.
I think it's more like 50%. No,
I'm
I'm just kidding.
I think it's more like a 99%.
I could see it. I'll say that. I could see it. I think anything, KenPom's got them at 26-4. Anything worse than, and they're going to have one more game added to that because they've got that MAC game that'll come in, which will be a good opponent. So I keep saying there's no good opponents or no like other good opponents. They will have one like really fun MAC game at home in, I think it's February 10th. So that'll be interesting. But so 31 games, I think anything less than 26-5, I'd be kind of bummed the way they're playing.
I know that I said that was going to be the last question for men's basketball. Last question. You go undefeated. You lose in the Sun Belt Championship game to App.
Mm-hmm.
Do you make the tournament?
Yes. Yes. if they're like 33-1 and get left out, I would file a lawsuit. A lot of those going around now.
A lot of those going around. A lot of them are working. Makes you think.
Some of them are pretty dumb though. I saw some Georgia, someone or other was like they wanted the Georgia bowl game, whatever it is, to be part of the college football playoff now. So it's just a 16 playoff because Georgia's clearly one of the best bowls.
Good for them. I respect that.
I like that. Yeah.
Moving over to women's basketball, we wanted to just do a quick update on how that women's team is, mainly because they got some interesting news the last couple of hours, the last couple of days. The NCAA transfer eligibility update. Do you know like what exactly is happening? Because it seems like every minute the news changes on it.
Yeah, it might be one of those snip, snap situations.
Snip, snap, snip, snap, snip, snip, snap, snip, snap.
But essentially, there was a lawsuit about the two-time or like the waivers, two-time transfers, and the waivers being ridiculous. And whatever it was, there's like a 2-week period with a TRO where if you were denied your waiver, you're able to play. But the issue is if you play in those 2 weeks, it seems unclear from what I've read today. Like if you play in those 2 weeks and then the TRO is taken away and then it turns out that the NCAA wins the lawsuit or whatever, then you lose your eligibility if you play like 3 games, I think, your year of eligibility for basketball. So my guess is for Heaven Bristow, who's a 2-time transfer, she's coming in from Ohio State. My guess is that they just keep her for next year and don't have her play this year unless they get clarity from the NCAA that's like, hey, you definitely won't have an issue with this and you'll be eligible for the course of the season. It won't be a problem. But even then, Shane Maitland had a nice story for the DNR where Coach O said something along the lines of like, she's been with the scout team. Like she's not ready to just plug and play right now.
Yeah.
So we'll talk to her about it, but she's kind of been going through the season under the impression she wouldn't play. So my guess is that they would kind of stick with that, but they could go either way depending on what happens with some of the legal stuff.
So you're saying the NCAA is kind of similar to this scene from The Office?
Big snip snap.
Wanted to have kids, and you said that you wanted me to have a vasectomy. What did I do? And then when you said that you might want to have kids, and I wasn't so sure, who had the vasectomy reversed? And then when you said you definitely didn't want to have kids, who had it reversed back? Snip, snap, snip, snap, snip, snap. I did. You have no idea the physical toll the 3 vasectomies have on a person.
That's great work.
Sorry. My bad. I love that snip snap audio. I shoehorn it into whatever situation is possibly happening. That and the Tim Robinson sketch. We're all trying to find out who did this.
Tim Robinson gets me every time. I watch the 50 burgers, 50 fries.
55 burgers, 55. Yeah. You gotta do it. You gotta do it. You know, podcasting has reached its peak when it's 2 guys talking about JMU sports to go on a tangent to quote Tim Robinson's sketches that no one wants to hear us quote.
But anyway, women's basketball, they're 7-3, playing at a high level, but they could use Heaven Bristow if they were able to get her, but maybe next year. They play Maine and Merrill in the next 2 games. Both of those will be challenging. They should be fairly competitive in the Sun Belt with or without Bristow, but not quite the level of the men's team, where the men's team looks like they could win an NCAA tournament game or 2.
Yeah, right now Hazel leads the team in scoring with 11.1. Right behind her is Kozlova with 11, and Peyton McDaniel right behind them with 10.9. They are the 3 Dukes this season who are scoring in double figures. Behind them is Ashanti Barnes, Annalisa Goodman, and Steph Odekirk. So far this season, Steph Odekirk might be the most improved player. I may have accidentally called that one.
Superstar.
She's looking really solid for them, averaging 22 minutes per game, shooting at about 35% this season, about 23% from behind the arc. So a solid season for Steph Odekirk is I think, is being leaned on a little bit more than what was initially expected with Heaven Bristow.
Yeah, big time. Also, quick men's basketball thing. Hampton, it's a road game. They're playing at Hampton on Saturday. Hampton's running like a promo where you can use a code JMU to get like discounted tickets. You can get like courtside seats for $15. So
do you want to go?
I can't, but if you're in the area, you could
Courtside seats were $15.
I think it's not like I think it'd be baseline court side or some other seats that are like $10 that are like pretty good spots. So if you're in the area, you want to watch like really good JMU play, it's a pretty good deal.
That is a great deal. Go on over to Hampton, who is a member of the Coastal Athletic Association now.
Also, shout out to Hampton for being like, you know what? We're going to run a JMU promo code for JMU fans. You can come watch your team in our building. It's fine.
That is one of the wildest things I think I've heard, actually.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Anything else? Anything else you got to add?
Listener questions. I want to fire you some listener questions.
Oh, thank you. I forgot about that.
And then, we should have done Sunbelt Bowl pick'em.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
No, we don't need to rub it in my face even more.
All right. It's a chance to come back.
Yeah, it's how you pitch it to me every year. And then every year it gets worse because then all I do is pick against you in the hopes of coming back.
All right. I'm going to hit you with one. This is from our friend Dom Palumbo. When do you think Signetti will post a graphic thanking JMU Nation for everything? First, no words. Then his new school posts a graphic with a bunch of our players. It's just appalling, embarrassing in many ways, and highly disrespectful to me personally, in my opinion. What are your thoughts?
Whatever.
I do think, though, the graphic stuff, people were getting a little bit too hot.
I think that's all from the school. Like, I think if JMU had decided to take Curt Cignetti's quote in his press release when he left, which was a very heartfelt quote, JMU fans wouldn't have been mad. And that's what Holy Cross decided to do. And it's who else decided to post a thank you graphic? I don't even remember, but it's a decision from the school. What I think, it's more of a school thing than it is like the coach being like, give me a graphic before I leave.
Yeah, and the Indiana thing was pretty normal, I thought.
The quarterbacks?
The quarterback graphic.
I mean, Sinceri was holding up a lot of weight in that, and it was kind of hilarious because
some of it was dumb. The part that was actually dumb, right, was kind of maybe the Alabama thing when he was like a grad assistant. But...
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, he was holding up a lot of weight with that grad assistant. So also they copied our exact thing, but that's beside the point. Also holding Sinceri wasn't there for Ben DiNucci, and then Sinceri was a grad assistant. So like three of you could have just said Curt Cignetti QB development and then just not had Mac Jones. And also Mac Jones isn't the best quarterback to be using right now, the guy who got benched.
I don't know.
It's like saying you developed Easton Stick. Look at our starting quarterback from North Dakota State.
You could pick some nits with it. I thought the JMU part was the most normal part of the graphic, like the last three guys.
Yeah. Honestly, you could have put the last four. You could have put DiNucci, Johnson, Centeo, and then just been, it was fine.
Wouldn't get too offended if you're a Jamie fan about Indiana stuff. Other thing, it is funny though, they put McLeod and then they maybe didn't recruit McLeod, even though they seem to go after the Ohio kid. Okay. From Screen the Screener podcast. Honest opinion, if JMU can be the final undefeated team this season in men's basketball. There are 7 left.
Do you have them offhand real quick?
Houston, Arizona,
no
Baylor, Oklahoma, Clemson, fraud. I don't know how many that is.
But I think I would say Houston's probably the biggest threat to going for JMU to go, because JMU doesn't have a losable game on their roster until January 13th. That is a month away. That is a long time. So can Houston go that whole time without losing? Probably, maybe. I'm going to say yes, though. Realistically, no. I think JMU's going to lose a game they should win. They did it last year against Coppin State.
Yeah, it's possible. They could give it a run if they
could definitely give it a run. But if I was a betting man, I would. Houston seems to do this every year.
Fair enough. Okay, Daniel Merriman. Over under 26.5 wins for men's basketball this year. And if they make it to March, will they win a tournament game?
I say over 26.5 wins. And if they make it into the dance, seeding matters so much. But I'll say they win a game.
I like that as well. I would agree. Okay. From Oglivio 804. Just how involved is a newly hired coach like Bob Chesney going to be for bowl game prep? Will he even be there? Knows he touched on this in the presser, but if you guys have any extra insight, it would be enlightening.
All the real insight is what Bennett has provided over at jmusportsnews.com, breaking down what each coach is doing that kind of is doing it on a volunteer basis for Coach Robo and company. That's about all we really have. And all we know is what Chesney has been saying, which is he might have a headset. He might not. He'll probably be on the sidelines for the game. He won't be coaching the game, but he'll kind of implement some drills throughout the practice and prep.
Yep. All right. From Kyle Helmick.
I love this question.
Yeah, you like this one. Why has Mark Byington been more successful at JMU than Lewis Rowe or Matt Brady?
So better than Lewis Rowe because he can coach.
Harsh but fair.
Matt Brady, Byington is better than Brady because he can recruit America. So Matt Brady was
the answer.
Matt Brady was elite at recruiting Eastern Europeans. Just absolutely elite. But that unfortunately did not translate well in the college basketball game. So what Mark Byington has done is he has really solidified kind of that pipeline in Virginia. You see it into Georgia a little bit, carries from Florida, and he's dominated this transfer portal era. He has gone into the portal each and every year, and he knows which positions they need and immediate fill-ins for. And he goes out there and he gets some really good guys. To call Molson. He got Vado Morse. He got TJ Biggerstaff this year, Mezzi Offram last year. Like he is a very good transfer portal coach. And I think that has been massive. You got Chuck Fulton a few years ago. Clutch Chuck, baby. Love Clutch Chuck. That shot against Eastern Kentucky, electric. But I think that's the difference. I think overall Byington is just a better coach than both of them from an X's and O's standpoint, from a preparation standpoint. And I think he runs laps around Matt Brady. I'll say this, though. Lewis Rowe could recruit. He got Matt Lewis to JMU, and Matt Lewis stayed all 4 years at JMU.
Yeah, portal helps Byington. And then also the arena is a nice recruiting tool.
But he was winning the convo.
Was he? I thought his first year was
was his first year 2020? Yeah, you're right. You're right.
And it was that nice, but they had COVID. So I guess it's not. Yeah.
But
yeah, he is running circles around both of them right now. This is
you got to imagine if he could recruit Eastern Europe, maybe he could be that much better than Brady.
Yeah, one time he spoke to our class and was like, I'm recruiting, like I'm on a call tomorrow with the 4th best shooting guard in Finland. We were like, is that a bit? But I don't think he got him either. Anyway, Joe Blow 4.
Who's Jackson?
Or Joe Blow 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. When should we expect to see some offers going out to high school recruits and portal guys for football?
High school recruits you'll be seeing as soon as you're listening to this podcast, because National Signing Day is the 20th of December. So all those offers are technically out. They have not taken away any offers, is what I understand. So we'll be seeing those guys sign here shortly. Transfers, we talked about a little bit earlier in the episode. Not entirely sure.
I had some on campus today, allegedly, so I bet the offers start flowing there. But it sounded like if he wants to see his guys, Jacob Dobbs.
No Sluka, though.
No Sluka. If he wants to see, like, I bet some offers would come post-Christmas if he's waiting to see, like, which guys are going to return and all that stuff. What else we got here? From Bill Papp, bottom 9. With Holy Cross, this is a good question. With Holy Cross elevating defensive coordinator Scott James to their interim head coach, is it safe to assume he won't be following Heartthrob Bob? Any chatter about potential offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator?
I'll be really interested to see who he brings from that staff, who he retains from this staff. We talked about it last time. He had Dean Kennedy, who's kind of this up-and-coming, very young offensive coordinator. He could potentially fill that role because there's not a lot of those guys on that like staff on the interim staff for JMU that have offensive prowess outside of Robo, who's an offensive line coach. So I'd be shocked if he was elevated to offensive coordinator. I'm scrolling back through my notes trying to figure out who exactly could come. So you got Drew Cavan, special teams tight end. He was in his 6th year with Chesney. Kyle Barnes, Mike Cardova. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if he brought a solid amount of these guys because a lot of them he hired just a few years ago, and the way he was kind of talking about we and our. You kind of mentioned it, and maybe we're reading the tea leaves too much. He might just be talking about coaching staffs and who he's bringing here. He probably already has the staff figured out in his mind.
What do you think about the Scott James thing? Do you think him being the interim takes him out of the?
I do, because because you're going to have to hire. It also depends on how long, because Holy Cross isn't in the FCS playoffs.
Right, but they've got early signing day too.
So maybe he dips after early signing day, but also that'd be kind of a rude thing to be like, "Hey, I'm here."
Like you
hey,
gotta
bye.
commit. Yeah, you gotta commit, and then he leaves.
And then he did. So I would be shocked if he came, honestly. Which I was kind of looking forward to him coming.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see what they do at DC. Okay. New Leaf 88. Will Coach Chesney be the one that beats UNC this time around?
Sure.
Mac Brown is so old. Do you think young Bob Chesney's going to lose to him?
Houston did.
That's true. That wasn't him. That was Fedora, wasn't it?
Oh,
Ripped Fedora. Was. He was wearing like those like extra small shirts.
That's right.
I love that guy. All right, from Alex, 092975 birthday. What are the 3 things that Bob Chesney brings to JMU football that Curt Cignetti could not?
Personality.
That's so mean.
Good clock management. I'm kidding, not personality. I love Cignetti's personality. I should say that. I thought it was a very funny. You made for some great quotes, some great post game. Remember against the Bucknell game, and after the game, Corey Spector was like, "So what'd you see out of Barnett?" And Cignetti just said, "You watched the game, didn't you?" That's electric. I think he's got to have better clock management and in-game management. Like, I don't think we're going to be trying to hold those 3 timeouts from the first half over to the second half as much as we did to get with Curt Cignetti. I know that. I don't know what else. I think they're very simple. I don't really know his philosophies that deep, and what he ran with Saluka is probably going to be very different than what he runs next year if they bring back Jordan McLeod or any quarterback not named Matthew Saluka. So I'll say, like, he'll probably bring the ability to connect with the community and donors a lot more and bring in more money from a donor's perspective. I think he will be a better in-game clock manager. And the third thing, I'll let Bennett say.
I think they might be more consistent on special teams too.
Okay.
But yeah, those are good. Okay. From Olivier Bouchard. Olivier 65358309. Asking about the motivation of the players. An alarming number of key players are in the transfer portal. I know Kamara and they said Morris, but I think it's Kamara and who opted out.
Was it Carter Miller or Tanner Morris?
Miller. Is Morris? I don't think Morris is even in the portal.
Okay.
I know might be. So Kamara and double check that. Kamara and why do I blank on his name even after you say it?
Carter Miller. Sorry. Are they left the team already? I assume the other players in the transfer portal are with the team preparing for the game next week. Yes,
that's correct.
The motivation, I think it's more motivation than it would have been if they weren't in the transfer portal. Like, I think this game means a lot to the team where it's like they decided to come together and play for this. That I don't think you can put like a value on. Maybe I'm being too cliche with that, but I think this game, they're playing for each other. And they're going to be very motivated to win and beat down this service academy in the Armed Forces Bowl.
I also think that like the new coaches that they don't know almost makes them like have to go hard in practice. Like if it was like only a couple position coaches, and maybe you can sort of go through the motions. But I feel like when you got new faces, it's like a burst of new stuff, especially if you want to impress Chesney.
Yeah.
Okay, there's one more, I think. This is a great question that I don't think we have an answer to. From Lacey Kirstein. How much does each alumni need to donate to the Montpelier Collective for JMU football to attract, retain, and secure the exceptional players the program wants? Can you perhaps quantify a minimum amount everyone needs to donate?
So there's a lot of alumni. There's 75,000 alumni in North Carolina alone. So if we're talking just like from a pure alumni standpoint, like $1, and we're good. But I know what the question's actually asking. There's a $150,000 like welcome Bob Chesney fund going for Montpelier Collective. I think right now they're averaging like $10 a donor. In all actuality, I think that has to get up tenfold. I think you got to be averaging like $100 per donor. We hope to have a little bit more of information about the Montpelier Collective on next week's episode. So stay tuned for next week's episode where we'll kind of do a deeper dive on the Montpelier Collective. But between that and the Duke Club, I think alumni need to be donating a good amount if you're able to donate at all. Don't feel like you have to. Enjoy JMU football. You paid your tuition. You paid into JMU football and all of JMU athletics with your student fees a lot. But if you're in a spot that you want to donate, not saying $5 or $10 don't matter, but maybe I'm just a pessimist with it all. But I just feel like you got to be kind of getting $100 per donor with the numbers of donors we have right now.
Bro, I am so excited to learn more because I have no idea.
Well, the question asks, like, how much does each alumni need to donate? Like, there are so many alumni that if they all can get motivated to donate, or even like 25% of them could get motivated to donate, $10 per donation would work.
But how much does like a player cost to retain? Because I don't know.
Clearly, whatever it is, we don't have enough of it because we got 14 guys in the portal.
Well, let's see how many come back, because maybe the NIL market isn't as big as they think. Like, I don't know.
I have no idea.
I don't know. So great questions that we're hoping to find some more, some stuff on. A couple other questions were about like staff stuff that we already covered. Last one, JMU RVA. This is a series of questions, some of which we've answered. What players in the portal are likely to stay?
Okay, we answered that earlier, but I'll kind of quickly go over it again.
Yeah.
I think your best chance to stay is Chauncey Logan, Aiden Fisher, Jordan McLeod. I think you got question marks with James Carpenter and Zach Horton. Mikel Kamara and Carden Miller are gone. You might be able to bring back Tyshawn Wyatt.
Yeah, and maybe Brent Austin, I guess.
Maybe.
Okay, who will step up to fill the gaps on the defensive line and linebacker? I don't know.
Trent Hendricks, Seth Naudala, and
probably people in the portal. If it's for next year, well, then this year they all should play, right?
Oh, yeah. For next year, they're going to bring in transfer portal
boys.
Trent Hendrick will be a starter, though, I think.
Yeah, Hendrick being there seems like pretty valuable.
Big time.
Okay, who are some likely names in the portal to be interested in transferring to JMU?
I think you'll see a good amount of Holy Cross guys.
Yep. A few
like
of those.
Dobbs, maybe Sluka.
Spence, Sluka, Sean. They got some options. And then we'll kind of find out more later. There's probably some like Northeast guys that we don't know about that Chesney did know about.
And once the kind of dust settles on all these Power 5 schools figuring out who they want in the portal, and it kind of calms down a little bit, we'll dive into the portal, kind of figure out who's getting potential offers, who's being talked to by the coaching staff, and try to put together a list. It's all being tracked over on the transfer portal tracker over on jmusportsnews.com. So if you have any questions, head on over there and you can see who's left JMU, and maybe eventually comes back from JMU. We'll be tracking all of that. We'll track all transfer additions and all kind of visits that have been taken by transfer portal kids and anyone that's all on JMU's radar. That'll all be tracked over on jmusportsnews.com under the 2023-24 JMU football transfer tracker.
That's exactly right. Last question that we sort of answered too is just who is Chesney targeting for assistance? We don't really know.
I would say 50% or more of the staff will be Holy Cross.
I would expect that as well. So that's fair. Yeah.
All right. Anything else you got to add?
No.
All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. This has been the JMU Sports News Podcast presented by Bet Online. We'll talk to you guys next week. See ya.
Thank you for listening to Believe. You can show support to your host by subscribing to the show and giving us a 5-star rating on your preferred platform. Check us out at Believe.com and search for BLEAV on YouTube.